right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. Today, I hope you are prepared for a little bit of tough love because she's coming for you. But it's actually going to be really, really helpful because this is something that I have consistently kind of seen over the years as like this narrative where I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about? But then I slipped into it a little bit and I woke myself up. I said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Because since when did we have that misconception? And so I'm here to wake you guys up as well and give you the right strategy. Here's my polarizing take for you. Here's my hot take for you. Here's my point blank period, put it on my tombstone. It just came across my desk. Moment. Ready? If other people in your industry are making a shit ton of sales on Instagram, it's not dead. It's not. She's not dead. She is not dead, gone, and buried. Taylor actually can come to the phone now because she's not dead. She's resurrected. The only thing dead is your strategy. And I say that with tough love, but also with honesty, because every week I hear the same complaints. My audience isn't on Instagram anymore, or my audience is dead. They don't talk back to me. The algorithm is screwing me. Instagram just doesn't work like it used to anymore. And you're absolutely right. Instagram doesn't work anymore. It does not work the way that it used to. But guess what? That just means that you evolve, right? That just means that even though Instagram has changed, you don't just like stop using it, or you don't just like half-ass your content or your strategy over there. It means you figure out a different way. If you plateau in your fitness journey, that doesn't mean you just like give up working out altogether or like switch the kind of workout that you're doing. It just means you need to add some weight, change up the reps, change up the movements. It means that you've leveled up. And so if you want to continue leveling up, guess what? You gotta make a change. So I need you to understand that the platform is not the problem. It's the way that you are using it. Because, which actually, this is so crazy to me. I changed up my Instagram strategy probably about 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And I used to get the majority of my leads and my sales coming from TikTok and maybe some sprinkling of like my Instagram stories. But that was the only fucking way that I could get people to buy. I was like, what is happening right now? Switched up my strategy. Now, 90% of my leads and my sales have come from Instagram in the last couple of months. And what's more, from my fucking feed content, which is crazy. So today I'm going to break down how people are actually consuming on Instagram now, because it's important to understand how people are consuming, because then you tweak how you're marketing to them, and why the old way of creating content does not work anymore, and the exact shifts that you need to make to get your feed to sell for you. Okay. So here's the reality of what's happening with Instagram. Like I said, it's not 2020, not 2021 again anymore. Back then with Instagram, people were binge scrolling. Right? I remember when Reels first came out, to the point where I was like, oh my God, I love these. I'm like dancing around. This is so fun, blah, blah, blah. They would spend hours liking carousels, saving posts, following 20 new accounts in one sitting, right? That's where people were consuming content. And now they are spending way more time on TikTok. When they open Instagram, it's like quick hits, right? Scrolling while they're in the Starbucks line or during commercial breaks, or they're looking at the first few bubbles of stories that pop up, or, like their friends that pop up or things like that, right? They're checking maybe 2 to 3 of their favorite accounts, and then they're closing the app. They're not casually consuming people anymore. And yet, most businesses are treating their marketing on Instagram like it is 2020, and it is so easy for people to find them on Instagram, and that they don't have to do anything out of the ordinary in order for people to engage with them and to buy from them. Okay? For service-based businesses, this probably looks like you being like, oh, here's the top 5 tips to blah, blah, blah every week. Or here's what I would change if I was trying to help you do this. Or here's the skincare regimen you should use for this. Over-explaining and long captions that don't sell. And to be totally honest, your audience isn't even really reading anymore, right? And then they're also really leaning into those polished aesthetic feeds that look good but don't create buyers. I have gotten more questions around what people's feeds should look like in the last 6 months than I have in the last 3 or 4 years on Instagram. It's insane to me. I'm like, sorry, we are not in Back to the Future, okay? We did not travel back in time. We are not in 2021 anymore. Yes, your content needs to look polished, but what's more than that, it needs to look fucking engaging, okay? and it actually needs to call people out, and it needs to speak to people, and it needs to get their attention. For a lot of product-based businesses, this looks like them posting flat lays and aesthetic product shots that all look the fucking same, okay? Repeating the same generic, like hydrating, clean, sustainable captions in every other brand that they're using. Okay. Relying on holiday promotions instead of building up daily demand. There's consistency without conversions, but that's just busy work at this point for you guys, right? So here are the shifts that I want you making that I have been really ultimately trying for myself and even my clients in the last couple of months that have been creating really, really great results. So number one is create demand. Your content cannot just be helpful, okay? It has to show what is broken in your audience's world and why your product or service is the solution. Okay. So for a service-based example, instead of posting 5 ways to manage your time better as a business coach, you should be posting, you're not stuck because of time. You're stuck because your offer isn't positioned to sell consistently. Fix that and your schedule opens up. As a product example, instead of 3 tips for glowing skin, a skincare brand should be posting, the reason your $20 serum isn't working, it's actually drying your skin barrier. Here's why our serum is different, right? You have to create a reason why people should be consuming your content. You have to create something that is different about you versus your competitor in terms of the solution your product or service offers, okay? And that doesn't come from educating. The number one thing that I will say to most people when I look at their Instagrams, I'm like, you look like everyone else. If I landed on your page, there is nothing that gets my attention to be like, whoa, I need to listen to this person right off the bat. Okay? Nothing. Number 2, handle objections in your feed. I need you guys to stop waiting for DMs or sales calls to handle objections. If your audience is ghosting, it's because you did not speak to their unspoken fears in your marketing, okay? It's not that your audience is dead. It's not that they won't talk back to you. It's just that you're not talking about anything that's interesting to them. You're not showing why they should be listening to you. And on top of that, you're not selling to them and you're not handling their objections. So why would they be reaching out to you about your product or your service anyway? Okay, so service-based businesses, here's what this could look like. A designer can handle the too expensive objection with posts like, you're not paying for a website, you're paying for a site that books clients for you while you sleep. The investment pays for itself. Or you could flip that into what they would be missing out on and say, if your website isn't booking clients while you sleep, we need to talk, right? Or if you're a product-based business, you could, as a jewelry brand, instead of having like the, I'll just wait for a sale objection, instead, you could talk about the limited design that you're offering during this sale or during this phase of the year that they're never going to get again if they just wait for the sale, right? Number 3, be polarizing, okay? Safe content is invisible content. Old opinionated content is what gets remembered, and what gets remembered means people are going to come back to your page to consume your content, okay? And this lie of like, people can't find me on Instagram anymore, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they can. They absolutely can. People are still going to Instagram as a search engine, okay? They're probably going to TikTok first, but that's another story for another day. But they are still going to Instagram, okay? So, number 1, your title on Instagram as a business should be very searchable, but then once people actually find you, the content that they are consuming of yours should be easy for them to remember, okay? So instead, as a service-based business, a copywriter could post, your problem isn't that you need better hooks, it's that your sales page is a novel that no one wants to read, right? I literally just had this conversation with one of my other clients who's in my accelerator program, and I was like, dude, no one is reading the sales page, probably past the second scroll. That is so fucking long, and it's all repetitive information. So I could put out a piece of content that I said that to my client. And in fact, the ones where I actually do say that typically do the best. Like I did a post recently where I talked about a client of mine, and I basically said, like, I told my client that her mommy influencer content was killing her sales, which I did. We changed her strategy, and here's the result that it created. That is going to be remembered way more than me telling them in my piece of content, oh, I changed my client's strategy and she created 50K in sales from 3 posts. Yeah, that's great, but it's not going to stand out and make them remember me. right? As a product-based example, a candle brand, they could post most clean candles aren't actually clean. Here's what other brands don't want you to know. And create content around the harmful ingredients that they have or how they market it as clean, but it's technically not, blah, blah, blah. That would stand out to me if that was important to me, like looking for a candle brand that was technically clean or organic and actually was, despite marketing that about themselves. I would eat the shit out of that piece of content and I would probably buy from them given the fact that they were willing to call other brands out like that. Polarizing doesn't mean dramatic. Polarizing doesn't mean mean girl marketing. Polarizing doesn't mean offensive. It means having a real opinion that makes people stop and think. I call this like microwave mentality, right? We're like scrolling through our feed and every 2-3 seconds, if we are not entertained, it's like boom, scroll, right? We want this like instant gratification from our marketing. And so because of that, as brands, as businesses who are marketing our products and services, we have to shift how we are marketing. If you're not getting their attention, if you're not standing out, if you're not creating content that immediately hooks them in within the first 3 seconds, maybe, of your content, and that's visually and verbally, you're done. They're not going to remember you. They're going to scroll on to their next post on their For You page, or the person who they actually remembered did what you do, and they're going to buy from them. Number 4, position yourself differently. If you sound like every other brand in your industry, you will always blend in. You need to highlight what makes you the obvious choice. So an exercise that I have my clients do is called competitor analysis or competitor research, and I will literally have them send me 3 of the top competitors in their industry, actual competitors, not like, oh, I aspire to be like this person, actual competitors. And I will basically say, okay, here are the things that they are claiming with their product or their service that they do. How do you do these things differently and or better? And they'll be like, well, we have a great personality on our team. Nope. That is not enough. It is not enough to be a great personality. It's not enough to have great client customer service. It is not enough to have really quality materials. I need to know how you are different. How are you going to get them a better solution? How are you going to get them better results? How are you going to get them faster results? How are you going to make what they are paying you worth their while? So, for example, a marketing coach doesn't just say like, oh, I'll help you grow your business. Who gives a fuck? I could grow my business on my own. Why would I pay you money to grow my business? Instead, they should say, I'll help you scale to 100K months without ads, trends, or burning yourself out on live launches. That would grab someone's attention, especially if they've already tried ads, especially if they've been told by 1,000,001 coaches that all they have to do to create more sales is live launch. That I'd be like, yes, please, let's talk about it. Product-based example, a clothing brand shouldn't just say like, oh, we sell sustainable dresses. They should say like, our dresses are designed to go from the office to a wedding to a vacation dinner. 1 piece, 3 lives. Because that speaks to what your audience wants. My clients, lastly, I want you to focus. You're going to be like, Savannah, what the fuck are you talking about? I want you to refocus on top of funnel content on Instagram. So many people right now have really turned away from top of funnel content over on Instagram because it's harder to go viral there. It is. But I don't give a fuck about you going viral. I give a fuck about you bringing new leads into your audience every single day. And while you can, yes, be funneling them in from TikTok, which you should still be doing, why are we putting all of our eggs in one basket? Especially given that we don't really know the nature of what's going to happen when the US is controlling the TikTok algorithm. It depends on who your target audience is. It depends on if they want to continue consuming content there, who jumps ship, when, where, etc. You should be creating top of funnel content on both platforms. Okay? Okay. And that doesn't mean you have to create more work for yourself. That's the other thing too. You can repurpose your trends from TikTok over to Instagram, top of funnel polarizing opinions. There's so much you can do there. I'm not saying you have to sit there and create more content. Okay? So let's talk about some case studies from my clients who have done this as well. I have a luxury wedding photographer client of mine. They are obsessed with polished and curated posts. Look like they're in vogue, right? She was at a point where she did not know how to attract in the kind of bride that she was looking for because she's taking on way less clients at this point, right? Because she has other things going on in her other parts of her business. And I basically sat there and I helped her break down who her target audience is. And then lastly, how to speak to them in their content or in her content. Because for her, she was just posting her work. But that's not what people care about on Instagram. There's 1,000,001 photographers who have very similar work. So why is someone going to book with you? And she was like, because I know how to shoot the shit with them. I know how to feel like family. I know how to make them feel excited and calm and all those things on their big day. And I go, that's what we need to show. So visually, we showed that. And guess what? She has 2 bookings. She posted twice. You're welcome. Oh, and not only are they like bookings, she's booked with fucking NFL clients. Okay, so these are not like small clients. That's what the right marketing strategy will do for you. I have another client who has a skincare brand, and they were posting very, very generic skincare content. Like, if you're trying to get rid of your hyperpigmentation, here are the 3 products you should be using. Here's the ingredients you should avoid. Here is why lasers aren't doing anything for you. Instead, I shifted their polarizing content to this. So like, for example, there's a misconception that turmeric is going to get rid of hyperpigmentation. Crazy. But I basically shifted their content to say, you know what you should do with turmeric for your skincare routine? Nothing. And she threw it in a trash bin. That went viral and got them a shit ton of sales. Okay. Because we talked about what they shouldn't be doing, what they should do instead, ingredients they should be looking for, and how their skincare kits had those ingredients. I had another client of mine who's in my accelerator program and had the prettiest feed that I have ever seen. Beautiful. They work in design. But no one was buying. Posting carousels consistently, posting reels, all the things. I took one look at their messaging, okay, and reworked her content to create the demand we were talking about, and talking about how the things that they were doing with their brand and their web weren't converting into sales the way that they wanted them to. She, no joke, went from inconsistent 20K months to closing 60K in sales in one day. Here is the shift that I need you to make mentally after everything that we have just talked about. Instagram isn't dead. Your strategy that you're comfortable with, that you learned back in 2020 is. You are literally trying to fit a square peg into a round hole at this point. This platform has scaled, not just yearly, they update the algorithm. People's buying habits, consumption habits, etc. change on Instagram probably 2 or 3 times a year. So we've gone through probably like 10 to 15 iterations of Instagram marketing strategies in the last 5 years. And you're still stuck back in 2020 or 2021. And you're wondering why you're not creating sales the same way that you did on Instagram anymore. It's because your strategy doesn't work for Instagram anymore, not because Instagram is dead. If your posts feel neutral, generic, if people can't find you, if you don't immediately stand out from your competitors, or if your content looks like it literally could have been written by anyone in your industry, or you sound like the top 5 people in your industry, people are not going to buy from you. Scaling on Instagram requires boldness, okay? Saying what others won't, addressing objections before they're raised, putting sales psychology into your feed instead of hoarding it for DMs and calls. And yes, it will feel riskier. It will feel weird. It will feel scarier. It will feel uncomfortable because you had not done this before. And your comfy, cozy marketing strategy beforehand was what you were used to. But also, if you don't change now, your results are not going to change and you're going to be even further behind. Okay? So here's what I want you to remember. Before myself and my clients made these changes, I was cranking out carousels full of educational, fluffy information, storytelling, things like that. And yeah, I was talking about people's problems and desires, but it was not converting the way that it should. I was obsessing over making sure our feed was looking perfect. I had a graphic designer who designed every single piece of content that went out. And I was wondering why sales were only coming in when I was pitching live. Now, feed creates demand daily. Posts are handling objections before I ever have to pitch my programs in the DMs, sales calls, anything. Content is polarizing and bold and positioned differently. And lastly, sales are coming in passively from my feed, and Instagram has reverted back to that sales machine that it used to be for me at the beginning of my business. You do not have to abandon the platform completely, but as a business owner, It is your responsibility because you're the one who's responsible right now for bringing in sales for your business. Unless you're making like 8 figures and you have a massive sales team and things like that. As the business owner, it is your job to shift with the times. It is your job to understand where things are changing in terms of buyer consumption and where people are consuming when it comes to their marketing. What content is performing well. Even TikTok has completely changed, right? The way that content performs, the kind of content people are looking for, the quality of the visuals even has upgraded. And if you're not shifting with it, you will get left behind. And so you do not get to complain when you're not seeing sales from a platform if other people in your industry are, because they're doing what you decided not to do. So if you have questions about how Instagram has changed, or you have questions about what your Instagram strategy should be in order to create sales, I want to have a conversation with you. I want you to send me a DM. I want you to ask me any questions that you have over on Instagram, our faith platform, obviously. And ask me your questions. Tell me what's going on for Instagram right now. And let's rework your strategy together so that you actually create sales. Okay? Instead of just posting content, because I'd rather you just not use the platform in general if you're not going to be strategic and with the times. Sorry, not sorry. All right, you guys. I hope that this was helpful. Send me a message on Instagram if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.